Shabbat Shalom. It's an honor to be speaking tonight. Thank you to Sisterhood for asking me. I'm honored to share the Bima with you this evening. Wow, that's the first time I've heard that in this room. Okay, I'll say that again. Shabbat Shalom. Fabulous. It's an honor to be speaking here tonight. Thank you to Sisterhood. It's an honor to share the Bima with you. So while preparing this sermon, I realized something. On the Hebrew calendar, 2 years ago exactly today, was my audition weekend here at Congregation Beth Yeshurun. So like this Shabbat, I was also an active participant in the sermon section of the service. It was an interview. And tomorrow I'll chant the 10 Commandments like I did 2 years ago. Last week in the Torah, we read of the crossing of the Red Sea and Miriam taking her timbrel, it's a tambourine, in her hand and leading all of the Israelite women in song when they reached the other side of the shore. The women of Sisterhood have brought us all that same energy tonight. Kol hakavod, ladies. I'm sure we can imagine, however, that nobody thought of singing when the waters had first parted, before the first of the Israelites had set foot on the earth that previously lay beneath the sea. Staring down the unknown can sometimes strike a paralyzing fear in you that definitely does not cause one to break out into song. But on the other shore, I'm sure those vibes were amazing. And singing tonight with all of these women also filled with song, I feel what are probably the same vibes as Miriam. I certainly am filled with that same sort of song as I stand on a different shore than I was before. And the journey of both starting as your first female cantor and becoming a Texan has definitely involved a similar theme of stepping into an unknown, previously unimaginable. Before coming here and interviewing before you, I was deeply rooted in Southern California, having never left my entire life, except for vacation. The same for my husband. I didn't even know what a rodeo was. And it goes without saying that I did not own a certain type of boots, and country music was neither in my repertoire nor something I had heard frequently. Texas? Every time I thought of it, all I could think of was, it will be different. It will not be something you are necessarily familiar with. There will be a lot of unknown, so much that the imagining expectations comes up fuzzy. Not only was I looking at a scenario where I would be far from most everyone and every familiar comfort food that I had ever known, I was also looking at walking into a situation armed with a different gender and a different voice type than what the community was used to. I was different. I was unknown. I would have to make a big change in my own life and then be a big change in a lot of others. And change can sometimes be terrifying. Also worth mentioning, I had just finished treatment for a rare cancer, having to sit out my first High Holy Days ever in order to recover from surgeries. I spent that time watching one of my mentors, Cantor Mayor Finkelstein, to see what music he was using. My rare cancer was in one of my eyes, and I had taken that as a pretty clear message that I needed to shift my perspective in something. It somehow relieved me of any fear of any future unknown could bring. And so Chris and I packed up our lives and stepped into our own parted Red Sea. So since moving here, every day is truly an adventure, and a really fun one at that, even if I can't make it outside of the loop without my GPS. My life is quite literally a string of Shehechianu moments, both big and small. I attended my first rodeo. I bought my first pair of cowboy boots, and then I bought my second pair of cowboy boots. It turns out that Hollywood and the rodeo have the same passion for sequins. only one of the many things that has led to this place truly feeling like home, despite our transplant status. And Chris and I just bought our first house and are planning to move soon after renovations. And here at Beth Yeshurun, the vibes. Every day I find something inspiring. Our children are walking around with the words of our traditions on their lips. Preschool parents have shown me home videos to prove it. Friday morning Beth Yeshurun Day School Shabbat services are an absolute party in this room and one of my favorite times every single week. If you've been there, you know. I feel very confident that our B'nai Mitzvah are going into the world armed with skills to do any hard thing that comes towards them in life and succeed, because Hebrew is also like that for basically every 12-year-old. Every single person on the Beth Yeshurun staff is a blessing, especially all of the clergy staff, Sarah Kaiser and Miss Julie Sachs. Some things I could have never anticipated. I now use y'all regularly. Seriously, it's like totally fun. After starting a very intense self-imposed country music immersion program, I can say with my whole chest that my favorite song at the moment is Tennessee Whiskey, and Boots Good and Boogie is stuck in my head every single day. Shameless plug, when the rodeo comes to town on February 23rd, our Gotection Shabbat here will be for the first time featuring an almost entirely iconic set of country melodies without skipping any of the Hebrew. My experience at Beth Yeshurun is all that I could have ever hoped for, and the vibes are more resonant than anything I could have ever dreamed. I have experienced many moments in the past 2 years that have struck me so profoundly, moments where you know strings of coincidences are no coincidence at all. They have littered the path through this particular Red Sea, and when I saw the Hebrew date coinciding with my audition date 2 years ago, it struck me as one of those moments. Tonight, I am very aware that I would not be standing here as the first female senior cantor of the largest conservative shul in the country, world, not sure, if it wasn't for the women around me who daven this evening and the women like them. They have made me being here possible. So back to the women crossing the sea, the ladies in the Torah. The rabbis of our tradition ask a spectacular question in their reading of this. It's a question I can relate to as someone who travels frequently, had a big move last year, and is anticipating another move. Why, if the Israelites were in such a rush to leave, such a rush that their bread had no time to rise, and that is why we have matzah, did Miriam think to pack a tambourine, of all things? Anyone who's had to cough up $75 for an overweight checked bag can relate, as well as anyone who might have packed light because they had to pack quickly. The question is resonant, and the rabbis came up with this answer because Miriam had hope that she would see a time to use that instrument again in the future. The very music brought forth by the women was not just a result of their voices, but underscored by an instrument of that epitomized hope. Of course, looking back now, I know I would have never come to Houston unless I knew to bring my own tambourine-like hopes, and I did, along with a real tambourine. I packed hopes of experiencing and creating the same kind of joyful energy once on the other side as Miriam and her ladies did. After being your resident spiritual and liturgical DJ for 18 months, and after looking around the sanctuary tonight, I think I know how Miriam felt to hear the ringing of her tambourine for the first time since leaving Egypt. I have been feeling it for a while now. For every day is filled with that same otherly shore energy, those Miriam vibes. And never once has me being a woman, been an issue to anybody that I've heard. For me, every day was filled with that same other shore energy, those Miriam vibes, and I cannot wait to celebrate unpacking my literal tambourine in our new house. The hopes themselves that I packed along with them have already begun to materialize, and I cannot wait to see what happens here next at Beth Yeshurun. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Cantor Goldman. I want to say two things after that wonderful Devar Torah. One, you may not know this, but when Cantor Goldman studied in Los Angeles to be a cantor, she was also thinking about becoming a rabbi perhaps one day, and she took courses in the rabbinic tract as well. And I believe you're just 3 courses short and a thesis. Well, that's a whole other story, right? But I think tonight shows maybe you should consider finishing those 3 classes. What a beautiful Devar Torah. Secondly, it's hard to believe it's only been 18 months. It seems many, many, many more years than that. Many more times we've been blessed to hear you, to be led by you, to be inspired by you, to get to know you and your wonderful husband, Chris. We see the difference you're already making here on Friday nights or with our B'nai Mitzvah on Shabbat mornings. Most importantly, in our religious school, in our preschool, in our day school. You've really become a Pied Piper for our young and an inspiration for all our members. So, Cantor Goldman, we are truly blessed to be with you on this ride, on this journey that we have been with you now for 18 months, and really in many respects 2 years since your interview weekend. And we are so thankful that you've bought a home here, and we hope and pray that you and Chris will continue to be part of the Beth Yeshurun family for many, many years to come. Again, thank you, Cantor Goldman, for all that you do for us.